In this episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks live stream, we're going to have all the sights and sounds from Intel Vision this week, as well as a deep dive look at Ryzen X3D performance on mainstream graphics cards, and a couple of hot notebooks coming up next. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Dave Altavilla for Hot Hardware, here with my compatriot Marco Chiappetta on a fine Friday afternoon here in New England. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
I am hanging in there. I'm still a little jet lagged from the West Coast, hanging out with the folks at Intel this week, but always good to see our friends out in California. What you been up to, man?
Same old stuff, just holding down the fort, trying to work myself out from this pile of hardware that I have been sitting on for ages and taking care of just a bunch of stuff. Too much to list.
I hear you. By the way, I don't know, could you hear me cracking a can of beverage?
I did not hear it.
Oh, okay.
I have my typical H2O.
Well, I just wanted to make sure everybody know, if they did hear that it's not beer 30 yet. This is a polar seltzer. So
sure.
Being a good boy.
Sure it is.
Sure it is, right? Little slurp for you. Oh, that's refreshing. So yeah, we got a lot going on. It's been a while since we've streamed, and we've been remiss because we've been running flat out, so busy. But that's a good thing, because there's lots going on, man. That obviously the place is heating up with AI, the industry in general these days, and that is just causing this absolute tidal wave of new technology coming through. But the products are still thumping out left and right, and the new silicon is coming to fruition left and right, it seems. So we're building up. It's only Q2 now. We're building up for a busy year and a real busy Q4, if from what I'm seeing and what I think you're seeing as well, Marco, all comes to fruition.
Yeah, I think it's a safe bet that in the next 6 to 8 months, we're going to have new CPUs from new desktop and mobile CPUs from Intel, new mobile CPUs, and potentially desktop CPUs from AMD. Qualcomm enters the mobile space with Snapdragon X Elite. We're most likely going to get new GeForces before the end of the year. Not quite sure where AMD stands just yet, but if NVIDIA makes some noise, AMD is probably going to make some noise. So definitely going to be busy second half of this year for sure.
You made some interesting projections there that, wow. Okay. I guess folks should stay tuned, especially to your good work at Hot Hardware. But, we've been doing this so long, and things have evolved over the years. We have our analyst firm, Hot Tech, where we get to, consult for some of these companies as well, these big players. And it's really good to be in this for as long as we have, dating ourselves, of course, 25 years now plus, I think, right? And just the relationships you forge. Because that's what business is all about. That's what successful companies and small businesses like ours are all about. It's the relationships you build and cultivate over the years with really brilliant people. We're fortunate to work with so many brilliant people, right?
Absolutely. That's actually been one of the best things working for the site is all the people we've met over the years. Unfortunately, we're doing it long enough that some of them are starting to retire now. But hey, we'll just forge new relationships with the new blood. That's all.
Amazing, right? Our buddy Michael Lim at NVIDIA, and of course our good buddy Brian Burke from NVIDIA retiring because they can, because likely NVIDIA's stock has served them well, and hey, rightfully so. They're great guys. They work their butts off and work for a company that is absolutely crushing it. So hey, that's the American dream, man, and
Amen.
Beautiful to be able to live it. Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Yeah. You and me both. I feel like some days I should be retiring, but not yet. No, not yet. That's not happening. And we love what we do too much too. I think I would have a tough time giving it up per se. But
Yeah, I forget what movie it's from or what this. He goes, I did nothing, and it was everything I expected it to be. I would like to do nothing for some extended period of time.
yeah. Oh, okay. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Well, the choice of being able to do less or nothing would be nice someday, but I'm not there yet. I still wake up in the morning with a fire in my belly for this, for sure.
I was there when I was 19.
Well, anyways, it looks like we got a powered by StreamYard logo here. That's interesting. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but yeah, do we have that on the stream? I'd have to see.
Looks like it.
What's that?
Looks like it, yes.
Yeah, it looks like it. And we have a little black background. We don't have our normal background, which I didn't plug in, but I think that's because we're renewing our StreamYard subscription. So forgive the black background, folks. We'll just have to do the best we can. But the show must go on. StreamYard is a great platform we work with here to serve up these live streams and simulcast to all the different channels we have for HotHardware. And we are currently out of rev on StreamYard. So we're just going to leave it there, going to give them some fabulous branding and say, hey, let's have our partnership back this year. Dang it. So with that, let's move on to the tech because we've been yapping too much. We're going to turbo this today, right? Because we got another meeting coming up shortly.
Absolutely. Less than an hour away.
Okay. So let's, where do you want to start? You want to start with Intel Vision, or do you want to get into some more deep dive tech stuff?
I think we start with the Ryzen stuff and finish with Vision. What do you think?
All right. Finish strong with Vision. Let's drop this into the chat. I'm going to try and share it out. Let me get it going here. And excuse again, folks, we're a little bit just trying to get organized from not being set up here properly as StreamYard. But let's drop this into the chat so everybody can see. A very interesting article from one of our guys, Zach Killian. Let me see. Let's see. Extra camera. Oh, no. I don't know if we can do this. Oh, this would be a bummer.
That's all right. As long as the link's in the chat.
No, I got it. I figured it out. Took me a little bit. Share. All right. Is it working? Oh, yes. I can add to stream. Add to stage. Hey, oh, my goodness. That was unbelievable. So, yeah, let me, again, get this lined up a little bit more. There we go. And this is an article that Zach Killian put together for us, exploring AMD 3D V-Cache impact on gaming performance with mainstream GPUs. Now, of course, everybody, knows that this thing, these products from AMD, Ryzen 7000 and the previous Gen 5000 series processors with 3D V-Cache bolted on top provides a nice performance lift for gaming in general, especially with game titles that need a little bit of extra CPU throughput. That extra cache helps for lots of things to boost frame rates and smooth out gameplay in general, because the game can run out of cache more locally on the processor. But what Zach teed up was a different sort of look. Here's a little Baldur's Gate 3 action, a different sort of look at performance on these processors relative to mainstream graphics cards. So let's say you don't have a big honking RTX 4080 or 90 or 7900 XTX on in your rig, but you have something more mainstream, maybe a 4050 or a 7600. 4060 or a 7600, those kinds of mid-tier or lower mid-tier GPUs. Does this technology actually help performance? And Marco, what were the findings?
So it's funny, if you were to go back to our X3D CPU reviews, CPU reviews aren't solely focused on one type of app. So I tested 4 games plus 3D Mark, right?
Mhm.
And you see an improvement across everything. But I do my CPU testing with a 3080, right? And
Yeah.
lots of other pubs are testing with a higher end GPU as well. So when you do that, right, the bottleneck is more on the CPU because your GPU is free to do its thing. And in all of our tests and the CPU reviews, we've shown X3D to have a benefit for all of the games we tested. Now,
Mhm.
when you shift the bottleneck to the GPU and put a mainstream GPU in, and now perhaps the CPU is waiting on the GPU in some instances, the benefit is not quite as great across the board. So Zach tested 7 different games. It was 150 different benchmarks across 3 different cards with 2 different CPUs, and literally half, about three and a half of the of the configurations, right, showed a benefit with X3D, and the others were flat. So some of the games, now the comparison isn't exactly apples to apples because you have a 5800 X3D versus the 5800X, which is clocked just slightly higher. So some of the games benefit from the higher clock of the CPU, and some benefited from the extra cache.
Mm.
So, I mean, generally speaking, I personally would still lean towards the X3D processors because they are almost as fast as the slightly higher clock processors, but they're typically a little lower power, and you get that extra cache when it is handy. But yeah, it's not as clear cut with a mainstream GPU is the answer.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Here's some Final Fantasy performance. A little bit tricky to parse these, but this is with a 5800 X3D. And what are we looking at here? Looks
So
like,
1% lows in average
yeah,
frame rates
yeah,
with the 5800 X3D and 5800X. So you're not comparing graphics card to graphics card. You're
right,
comparing those 4 bars per each GPU. So you can
right.
see the lows and the averages.
Yeah, so small differences there, very
Mhm.
small. Um, Interesting how Arc has an issue with mins there. And then let's look at something a little bit more. Here's Fortnite. Again, here's a game that you would think would be more CPU sensitive because it's not a bone crusher GPU game. And you get some more variability there, right?
Yeah, slight improvements with the X3D chips there. Yep.
Yep. Yep. Yep. Any other takeaways? I thought this was interesting. Here's Cyberpunk. This is probably, what are your thoughts on that?
See, Cyberpunk shows the biggest benefit, right,
Yeah,
with the X3D CPUs.
which is
Now it
crazy.
was testing at 1080p with resolution scaling, right? So it does sort of allow the GPUs to perform better than they would without the resolution scaling. But it's a scenario where the GeForce didn't really show much benefit, but the Arc and the Radeon showed a big benefit with X3D.
Yeah, 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 and that's interesting in that for this game title, if you have a lower end or a mid range graphics card, um, you're more likely to use upscaling technologies like DLSS, XeSS, and FSR, and so that's a very real world application as well, where folks with these kinds of with this kind of horsepower on board, this more mid-range horsepower versus high end, would employ those technologies. And if you have some X3D juice, some 3D Vcache juice behind you, get some additional gains on top of that as well. So cool.
Yep. Good
Wow.
stuff. It's really interesting. It's if you have a mainstream system, let's say you have an AM4 board with an old Ryzen 3000, and you have a mid-range GPU, and you're wondering, should I upgrade my CPU? I'm not sure of the benefits if I stick with this same GPU. Now you know.
Okay. Now you know. Yeah. So, definitely a worthwhile technology. I think there was an Intel exec that was asking the question: does this really matter for mainstream users, a wider swath of mainstream users? And I think the net answer is it depends on the game titles you play
Mhm.
and your setup. But especially in the cases where you're taking advantage of image upscaling and taking a little bit of that load off the GPU and freeing up more CPU or putting more load perhaps available to the CPU, it can give you a boost as well, right?
There you go.
So I, try and boil it down. There's the inside dirt. We did the work. Thanks, Zach. Good job on that article, pal. All right, let's drop another one in, and this we're going to move on to laptops now, right? Right.
Yep.
All right. So let's look at Dell's XPS 16. Just dropped a link in the chat. I'm going to bring that back up now. Oh yeah, look at that ad going on here. Okay, let's get rid of that and scroll on down. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I am fumbling. I dropped into private chat, Marco said. What did I do? I dropped the link into the private chat. Oh, well, yeah, I do that. Okay, hang on a second. Let's drop the link into where everybody can see. There we go. Okay. So, yeah, Dell XPS 16 combines a premium, perhaps polarizing design with solid performance. And this was authored by none other than Sherry Smith, formerly of Laptop, who is now doing a little work with us. And this is a premium line of product from the folks at Dell. By the way, welcome aboard, Sherry. Good to have you with us. This is a premium line of product from Dell. It's the XPS 16. That new 16-inch form factor is beginning to really get some legs. There's virtually every major player, HP, Lenovo, who have you, will have a 16-inch format now. It's kind of shifted a little bit from 13s, which are also available, to 14s and 16s. I personally, my Goldilocks size is 14 inch, but this is a premium, larger format 16-inch machine, and it has onboard discrete graphics. It is powered by Intel's Core Ultra 7 155H. I think that's actually a small typo in the specs there.
I was just trying to fix before you got there.
That's all right. And a GeForce RTX 4070. So it does have discrete graphics on board, and 32 gigs of LPDDR5X dual channel at no less than 7,467 megahertz. So screaming fast memory, 32 gigs of it, and a beautiful what they call Infinity Edge display from Dell there. Really nice. The display is OLED. Yeah, baby. 400 nits, 3840 by 2400. So really 16.3 inch UHD plus high resolution display, OLED display, 400 nits of brightness. And talk about, I mean, it is spec'd to the hilt. What do you think about this machine, and what Sherry found out about it when she kicked the tires on it?
So I think it's a beautiful machine. The reason that she said it's a somewhat polarizing design is Dell really went for the ultra clean look here. There's no delineation for the touchpad. There's, except for basically the branding and the labels on the keys, there's nothing else on this machine but ports, right? So it's a really clean, simplistic looking design, but hiding the latest platform tech. I personally love it, right? Performance is exactly what you'd expect from a 155H with a discrete GPU. It doesn't have quite the thermal headroom to hang with slightly larger, slightly thicker machines with similar GPU configurations that have a little more thermal and power headroom there. But it doesn't really matter, right? It's still sufficient. This machine is perfectly capable for productivity, content creation, and gaming. And it looks absolutely awesome, in my opinion. So I say kudos and A+ to Dell. The XPS line has traditionally been an awesome line of notebooks, and I think this carries the tradition.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is kind of, let me see if I can get this a little bit more high res here, but this is kind of the I guess what you would say is polarizing enough, in a departure, if you will, from traditional notebook design. This is the trackpad area, which, as you can see, if the ads would stop popping in, which, as you can see, is completely devoid of any delineation of the trackpad area. And so it's definitely a little bit more of a polarizing design in that respect. But I don't know. I think it's I think it's really clean looking. And what I can tell you is I have the XPS 14. Here, let me switch back to this right now. See if I can get this on screen. I have the XPS 14 here with me. And I mean, my review is incoming on this. Actually, Nathan Ord and I, it's booting up, are reviewing this together. We're going to tag team it. I'm going to do a little coverage on Forbes, and Nathan's going to cover the HH angle. But this is what the 14-inch form factor looks like. And I think the keyboard and trackpad area is quite gorgeous. You know, I don't miss that. I don't have a problem with, knowing where to do my trackpad inputs and multi-gesture support and all that good stuff. I love the zero lattice keyboard, and zero lattice meaning there's no actual plastic lattice in between the keycaps. They're all larger and closer together. So the spacing is a little tighter, but because the keycaps are larger, I find it's very accurate for me. Really not a problem in terms of, typing capabilities on it. I really think this design works. I'm glad Dell stuck with it. I think some folks, kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say poo-pooed it, but it is polarizing to some folks that, are used to looking at traditional laptop designs. But I would say, hey, don't resist change so much, because change can be good. And if you hit the function button, you can see the top row also does something that I like as well. It's a little bit hard to see maybe there. I don't know if you can see it, but you hit the function button and this top row of function keys. Now, I mean, let's face it. I use, brightness up and down, volume up and down, stuff like that on a regular basis, mute, all that good stuff, the media keys, right? I don't use the F function keys so much as perhaps, some old school folks do. But if you hit the function button, it'll toggle to the standard F1 through, 9, 10, whatever it is, 11 keys that are in there. So I think it works. I think it works really well. Really well built machine. I love the aluminum frame, clamshell design, and this is a 3K, OLED display, which is just killer. So design wise, it's great. Performance wise, how did Meteor Lake do?
So, Meteor Lake's kind of flat in terms of single thread performance versus previous gen. You get somewhat better multi-thread because there are actually more cores and threads available in there. Where the benefit comes is in terms of battery life, because you have those low power E-cores on the low power island. So if you're doing something like a video loop, like we did for testing, where the system can offload that to those low power E-cores, the system ended up getting 620 minutes in PC Mark's video loop test. Not quite the top of the chart, but it's in the top 4. And this is with a 4K display, right? So, nice high resolution display, sufficient strong performance, right? Not class leading performance, only a 155H, not a top of the line chip, but still very strong performance across the board, and battery life amongst the best with a discrete GPU and that nice high res screen. So, you've used it in the field. If the trackpad wasn't an issue for you, I don't think it'd be an issue for me either. I dig it. I think it's good stuff.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Trackpad is a non-issue, and I am particularly trackpad sensitive. I am not that great with a trackpad. I use it begrudgingly because I don't feel like, messing with attaching a wireless mouse or whatever. And I like to keep my bag as light as possible. But the trackpad is a non-issue for me, and I wouldn't consider myself an expert trackpad user by any means. Much more mainstream in that regard. And battery life for me so far has been great. I took it out. Loaded it up and took it out to Intel Vision with me this week out in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and had no issues with battery life. Need to still look at that and test that with the OLED display. You're gonna pay a little bit more of a premium, I think, for that high res display, just lighten up more pixels. Nathan has a 1080p display. Nathan, who's going to be doing the HH review on our team, has the 1080p display version of it, and that's going to have the best battery life of the group for the XPS 14. But on the 16, as you can see here, performance is competitive. Let's see. Here's some PC Mark for productivity. This is the 16-inch version, Dell XPS 16 with the Core Ultra 7 155H and a GeForce RTX 4070. You can see it's up there. It's hanging out with the Prestige AI Evo with a 165H. So it falls right in line where we expect. And it handily outpaced the HP Dragonfly Pro with the Ryzen 7 7736U. So, I'm trying to think what the wattage difference is there. The U series from AMD is 15 watt TDP, and the 155H is that? I think that's a little bit higher TDP, right?
23, yeah.
23, yeah. So, but it's still, in terms of battery life, holding up, even though it's a higher power part. Here's some gaming performance or graphics. 3D Mark Time Spy. It's an RTX 4070 class of throughput here. Nothing too surprising. Other machines with a little bit higher end processors, the previous gen Core i9 13900H and the Gigabyte Aero 16 OLED with its RTX 4070, as you can see, is significantly faster. But that's a much higher powered CPU and a totally different ball of wax there.
Right, and a higher clock CPU and more thermal headroom for the GPU, right? So even though you may see two machines with what look like the same GPU, the amount of wattage they're able to consume because of that shared cooling and because of their TDP configuration can be very different.
Yeah, and so here's another one. Again, same kind of scenario there. You've got 13900HX and 1200H and 13700H CPUs in larger format laptops. Well, chunkier, I would say. The HP Omen Transcend 16 is a chunkier machine, but it's a 16-inch machine. And you're talking about thermal constraints, really on the GPU, limiting the performance there a little bit. So at any rate, all in all, a well-balanced machine from Dell, the XPS 16 and the XPS 14, which we will have reviews up in the coming days, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's move on to, let me stop sharing this and let's move on to real quick mention for the Samsung Galaxy Book4 Pro 360. Marco, why don't you dive into that quickly, and I'll get that shared up on the screen. It's also powered by Meteor Lake, right?
Yeah, so on the base level, similar configuration in terms of the CPU. It's this Samsung Galaxy Book4 Pro X360 that we took a look at. The article was actually penned by Matthew Canaster for us. So same Core Ultra 7 155H, but no discrete graphics in here. It's using the ARC graphics built into the CPU, so a lower power machine, thinner, lighter, similar 16-inch form factor, but just not quite as powerful a machine without that discrete GPU. And so what you'll find here is in all the CPU tests, it's roughly competitive with a machine like the XPS 16 or other Core Ultra 7 155H powered machines. But the 360-degree hinge allows the machine to work in multiple modes, right? You could flip it into tablet mode, tent mode, presentation mode, where the keyboard's down and the screen is up. And Samsung, in terms of styling, it's a very premium-looking, subdued. I hate these comparisons, but everybody makes them, so we have to as well. A somewhat MacBook-looking system, and overall, really nice. There's a bit of a premium, so it's on sale for $1,500, and that's without a discrete GPU. So it is not a mainstream priced machine by any means. But if you're looking for a premium sort of look and feel to a 16-inch format notebook powered by Intel's latest platform tech, it's definitely something to check out.
Yeah, and the other thing to point out here is that it does have a big, beautiful OLED display as well, and pen support. So
that's it, pen and touch with a 3K AMOLED display. So definitely really nice.
Yeah, and a 360-degree hinge. So there's a bit of extra value there, perhaps, I guess, with the pen and touch stylus support, if that's your jam. And a lot of folks are doing that these days, especially touching up generative AI and all that good stuff. And performance lands, again, about what you might expect. It's not a benchmark buster, but it's solid mainstream performance. Let's skip the disk tests. They could have done a little bit better job with putting in a faster SSD, especially for Samsung, because Samsung is a huge NAND, memory SSD provider, and so this is more like PCIe Gen 3 kind of performance, right? And not quite hitting the peaks we see in Gen 4 and Gen 5 drives in some of the latest notebooks these days. But, in general, here you can see system responsiveness, browser bench, speedometer. It's right up there. It hangs. It's not a huge number cruncher in like Cinebench renderings on the CPU. But it's good mid-range performance in general for this class of machine. Really can't complain too much. Let's see where it landed. Here's productivity with PC Mark. Again, it's up there, hanging out with Core Ultra 7 165H and the Prestige 16 Evo. So good machine all around. Pretty good value with some unique features with that pen and touch support and 360-degree swing hinge. And it's beautiful. I will say that Samsung does a nice job of industrial design, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely an attractive machine. I dig it.
Yeah, so something to check out. 2 laptops from the folks at both Dell and Samsung. And there's some nice choices in the market these days. I think it's going to get even more interesting in the back part of this year, though. And that takes us to our next topic, which is the Intel Vision conference that I attended this week in Phoenix, AZ. Wow, just some impressive claims to be made for the forthcoming Lunar Lake platform, and some impressive demos and execution on Intel's side for generative AI accelerators, or AI accelerators in general, I should say, with Gaudi 3. So I guess what were some of your key takeaways there, Marco, for the conference? Lots of headlines coming out of that show. Pat Gelsinger doing his usual super energetic. That guy's energy, I love it on stage. He's really just so into it. It's infectious almost. So you gotta give him kudos for that. What were your thoughts on the show in general?
There was tons of talk of AI. I think that Intel. I too love hearing Pat speak. He's not your typical foo-foo CEO. This guy understands architectures down to the transistor, so he can explain it in a way that everybody understands, but he's geeking out underneath, and I love that about him. But yeah, the key takeaway is that AI is here to stay, and it's only going to be even more prevalent as we get towards the latter part of the year. And with those, it was some super quick disclosures on Lunar Lake. But if you were to take the Meteor Lake now, the Core Ultra series that's available today, they have it's a 15 top NPU in there, right?
It's 11 actually.
11 top NPU, and I think the total SoC is like 40 something. Correct? Am I
yeah,
right
something like that? Yeah.
Now they're saying that just the NPU in Lunar Lake is going to be 45 tops roughly, if my memory serves correctly.
You are correct.
And it's also going to have next-gen GPU, roughly based on Battlemage, right? So not the current-gen Arc GPUs, but the architecture in Battlemage. And then you factor in manufacturing improvements, architectural improvements for the cores, cache hierarchy changes, all that kind of good stuff. And the total platform is not only supposed to be more efficient, but much more performant across the board, especially in terms of GPU and NPU. So it's also more highly integrated. It's similar to Apple. There's going to be on-package memory with Lunar Lake. So seems like it could be really interesting. We're going to have much easier to implement motherboards that require less real estate with more performance and efficiency. So yeah, Lunar Lake could be a really interesting platform.
Yeah, and that last comment you made about motherboard simplicity, better integration of the technology. This is a shot of MJ, Michelle Johnston Hollis from Intel, senior VP, and she is holding Lunar Lake in that shot. The shot with Pat on stage, where he was also holding Lunar Lake, it wasn't quite visible, it wasn't zoomed in enough. But here you can see Lunar Lake. If you just look close enough, right here down the bottom, this is going to be the one area of concern for some, perhaps, but it's also an enabler, very much an enabler in terms of memory bandwidth. So the CPU core is there, as you can see, and the memory is on package with the CPU, which is similar, dare I say again, to what, I have to say the Fruity company, not to give them kudos, but the M architectures employ this same design with system RAM so tightly coupled to the CPU that it helps with bandwidth dramatically. So it's an on-chip, multi-chip module with DRAM on board. You will choose from these laptops, and these will be thin and light category laptops. Arrow Lake, they're talking about, for a next band up, and we can't get much more into that. But these are thin and light machines, and you will choose out of the gate 8, 16, 32 gig, what have you. I'm not sure what the maximum memory capacity is for Lunar Lake. Intel is, NDA and keeping that tight right now. But that's the way this is going to work. So choose wisely when you pick your RAM complement. But the trade-off you're making for having that fixed amount of memory, and who knows, maybe there'll be, I don't even know if they can attach a SODIMM socket to this and have some expandability in some machines. I'm guessing probably not. But choose wisely, and the benefit is you're going to have a lot better memory bandwidth and a lot better performance. Hearing the folks at Intel extremely excited.
Is it more bandwidth or better latency? Because I'm not sure they disclosed the interface with
that. That's a good point. It could be both, or it could be. I tend to think it's both, but latency for sure, because yes, round trip latency and all that good stuff when you're that close to, when you have the CPU complex that close to memory is definitely improved. I think it's both, but that is speculation. You're right.
Yeah. And Intel, if you're listening, don't bother with 8 gigabyte configurations unless it's some super low end, really cheap machines. 16 gig minimum. It's 2024.
Yeah, and I think you will see, especially in the case of, and again, this is speculation. Intel hasn't gone on record with any of this commentary. This is just my speculation and sort of the vibe I got when I was out there. The Core Ultra experience, or I should say the Evo experience, will prevail, and larger memory complements will be encouraged, I believe, from Intel, especially when you consider that this thing has, a multiple times, more powerful NPU on board for AI, which consumes a lot of memory, in general. So I can't see the recommendation for an Evo class machine. Again, not that it's been confirmed by Intel in any way. I can't see an Evo class machine with anything less than 16 gigs. I can absolutely see some, SKUs out there from the major players with 8 gig on board, because, hey, everybody wants to hit that price point, that cheap as you can get price point. But I agree. Wouldn't advise it, right, Michael?
Yeah, stick those in Chromebooks, right? And
But what's funny? I mean, we're technology evangelists and and enthusiasts, and we don't have a favorite dog in the race. We love it all, and as long as it enables something cool. So yeah, maybe recommending for higher RAM sounds counterintuitive for the consumer. It might be more costly, what have you, but it's worth it, right?
Yeah, because you have to think about the entire usable lifespan of the machine, right? So if you're skating on the edge with 8 gigs today, by the end of its usable lifespan, it's not going to be enough. So why limit yourself for what is ultimately a small additional investment?
Yeah. Sanchez says, I'm hyped for the Xbox AI powered next gen console. Think they're going with the Intel chip.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. Again, more speculation, but yeah, why not? Sure. I'm kind of hyped for that. If that
The beauty of x86 based consoles, right? They can just swap platforms and all the software will still run.
everything still works.
If they stick with an x86 based chip, you know, I may have heard other rumors for other consoles with ARM based processors. We'll see.
Really? Wow. Holy mackerel.
I don't know what's correct. I don't pay much
no.
attention to the console space lately.
Well, and the rumor mill is the rumor mill, right? You take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's happening on the client side. Of course, Meteor Lake, they're working feverishly to keep that optimized and to provide the software enablement required to foster the AI ecosystem on their hardware. I think you're going to see lots more coming from Intel and places like education for AI enabled PCs. So they're doing the hard work, the good work to not only, bring the NPU to market. It's, make this thing called an AI PC, but actually make it useful for people, beyond just the AI buzzword, right? So that's
well.
Key.
And before we wrap, you were at the show. What was your overall take?
I'm going to drop this in as well. I'll drop this into the chat, and a couple of demos I saw that I was impressed with, and oh gosh, come on with the video ads. Anyways, yeah, this is a demo that I saw that was great with generative AI. In short, I was impressed with the show. A little bit difficult on the event venue, which was absolutely gorgeous at this resort in Phoenix, but it was just spread out so far that there was a lot of sprawl to traverse to get from meeting to meeting. But Intel did a great job, I think, of really showing what an AI PC is capable of, what Gaudi 3, their new AI accelerator for the data center, is capable of. This is NVIDIA Hopper H200, H100 class performance. They're claiming faster, with better power efficiency in what I would say is more mid-range server class applications versus, let's say, Blackwell, which is a supercomputer, super AI supercomputer kind of applications with the big, InfiniBand spine and all that stuff, higher power by far. But in that range where, Dell servers are fired up with Gaudi and Gaudi 3, Gaudi 2 and Gaudi 3 GPUs, a very compelling product with a good power efficiency, I would say, value proposition. But here's a demo they did where they took, let me see if I can roll it and not screw myself up here. Oh, let's rewind. Why did it do that, Google? So this is a demo that, let me skip through. This guy here put his image, he took a picture of his image and actually took a straight on still and two side shots of himself, and the AI rendered in the cloud on Gaudi 3. Let me cut to this, a couple of different images. So here's one. He just put in, dramatic winter shots of like a ranger, adventurer type. And it went through all these iterations and it ended up on this, which I thought was really cool. It was really a cool demo to see it. Gaudi 2 rendered it in the cloud. The AI client did some of the work in terms of taking the natural language input, Meteor Lake laptop in that case. And yeah, there he is right there. But he's a swashbuckling, frontier guy in the winter wilderness, thanks to AI. Man, I could do some stuff for myself on that, right?
What would be cool is when that's eventually real time, right? We could be streaming like this, and the AI could make it look like we're,
in Siberia,
on safari, right, or in Siberia, whatever. It's gonna be crazy because it's gonna be really hard to tell what's real and what isn't in a few years,
right?
But We have to press forward. There's people afraid of AI, and those are the same people that would have still be on their horses instead of driving cars. And we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
hope.
we'll figure it out is right. That's a good point, Marco. There were folks that used to say, they were fearful of electricity and stick with the candle, and then eventually it was only rich people will use candlelight because electricity will become so cheap, and that really was the case. Here's another demo they did. This is using a couple of different CAD tools with Stable Diffusion, Comfy UI front end for Stable Diffusion, and Autodesk Revit. That's what they use there. And he is applying effects, as you can see, real time with text prompts. And this is all rendering on an ARC GPU in the Dell desktop workstation that's powering this demo. So it's an ARC A770 doing it. And so he's got a rainy scene there, and it looks like he's going to change it to sunset. I think he just kicked in for a prompt, and you'll see it bang, takes this. And not only did it take this Autodesk sketch, which is just a wireframe sketch, but it put in all the textures and the colors and the shadowing and the lighting. And then, he changed the time of day and the weather like nothing. Thought that was a really cool demo too. It's good to see the demos, right?
Yeah, it really is, right? Because it's tough to visualize applications it's tough for everybody to visualize how it's going to enhance their daily life. There's lots of fear mongering out there, and I think it's going to, take away their job completely, when in reality, it may actually make your job easier and ultimately improve the quality of your output. So yeah, it's cool. Like, instead of having to manually texture and set the lighting, just to type or speak a prompt and have it do it is really cool.
Yeah, he's doing it here on a Meteor Lake laptop, and he's going to let's see, what did he just do? Sunny day or something like that, I think, is coming up. Yeah, let's see. Anyways, that's gonna render on the MPU. Yeah, there you go, sunny day. So showing both the laptop and the desktop use cases of different engines, NPU, and in case of the desktop, the GPU for AI processing. So yeah, man. And yeah, if you're an Autodesk, CAD designer, kind of workstation pro, I mean, talk about the power of creativity here that you can have at your disposal. So much easier than, having to manually do it. Take the grunt work out of it. Let the AI do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool. I think that about wraps us up. That was Bob Duffy, by the way. Great guy at Intel. I met in person finally, and good dude. And we had a lot of fun at that demo. And yeah, I thought Intel Vision 24 was done real well, and look forward to Lunar Lake coming. And they actually said in time for the holiday shopping season this year.
Very nice.
Pretty quick cadence, right, for Intel. I think Lunar Lake is ahead of schedule for them, which is refreshing, right? They actually, I think they got, whatever Rev 0 class of silicon in, and the bugs were not there, and so they didn't have to spin, and it's looking good, So hey, beautiful.
Also helps explain I'm not going to say scarcity of Meteor Lake, but Meteor Lake availability isn't quite what everybody imagined at this point, and it's probably because, hey, let's not make a ton because Lunar Lake's coming sooner than later.
Yeah, again, speculation, and I still think Lunar Lake will probably exist out there for cheaper SKUs. Excuse me, Meteor Lake. But yeah, it could very well be the case. They got some new stuff coming, but that should wrap us for today, because you and I have to jump on another meeting and keep our faces in front of a camera, right?
In 9 more minutes.
And yeah, no, absolutely. So let's wrap up and bid everybody adieu. Find us on the web at hothardware.com or Hot Tech, which is our analyst firm. Twitter.com/HotHardware, YouTube.com HotHardware. We're everywhere. Hit thumbs up and subscribe so you get notified when we go live with these live streams when we can. Don't we try and hit Fridays now for either the noontime or 1 o'clock, but it's not always as easy to do. So The reminder bell is key, right, buddy?
Yes, definitely subscribe, hit the reminder bell, comment. Even if you commented live, throw a comment, on the video there to help with the algo. And yeah, we will see you in the next one.
Absolutely. And with that, we will bid you all adieu and thanks for stopping by.